9 spine-chilling neighbor horrors. Secrets revealed about the haunted home next door in the peaceful suburb of Willow Creek. Darkness lurked beneath the surface, hidden in the silence of a home gone cold. The new neighbors, the reclusive couple, had moved into the quaint, empty house next door, their odd behavior sending ripples of unease through the neighborhood. Whispers of their late-night gatherings and peculiar comings and goings invaded Sarah's serene life as a single mother, raising her 2 children, Max and Lily. Yet, it wasn't just the couple's unsettling nature that kept Sarah awake at night. It was the horrifying whisperings that echoed in the back of her mind. What terrors might they hide behind their closed doors? On a stormy evening, lightning illuminated the sky like a camera flash, slicing through the abyss of night. Sarah tucked Max into bed, his small face illuminated by the flickering light. But beneath the surface of sleep, shadows wrestled with his dreams. Suddenly, he jolted awake, sweat-soaked and trembling. Tears streaked down his cheeks as he murmured stories of the man from next door, standing at their window, watching, always watching. Panic gripped Sarah's heart. She brushed it off as a childish nightmare, but something in her gut twisted. She could almost feel the chill of his words. The following days spiraled into a haze of dread. Murmurs swirled throughout Willow Creek. Sarah began to receive mysterious handwritten notes slipped under her door, each one more ominous than the last. "Beware the shadows," one warned. "They linger too close." The penmanship was shaky, the ink smudged, as if it had been written in a panic. Each note sent a prickle down Sarah's spine. The cryptic messages gnawed at her sanity. Were these the twisted imaginings of a neighbor, someone who knew too much about the couple's dark secrets? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Max's nightmares reached a peak amidst the relentless storm. Each crash of thunder echoed the turmoil brewing outside and inside her home. She held him close, but as he drifted back to sleep, she couldn't escape the gnawing worry that licked at her heels. The walls seemed to close tighter around them, shadows flickering across their living room as if beckoning her to surrender to fear. When the local police brushed her concerns aside, labeling them as exaggerated motherly fears, Sarah felt her world tilt. Their dismissive comments bounced in her head. Late-night reports of missing persons began to weave a spine-chilling pattern in her mind, tying them back to the couple next door. Could it be that her precious kids were within striking distance of a horror that lurked just beyond the property line? As night descended, the storm turned feral, power snaps plunged her home into darkness. The wind howled like a banshee, and with the clamor outside fading into a heavy silence, the unmistakable sound of footsteps echoed within her own yard. Fear seized Sarah's heart. She gripped her flashlight, a weapon against the looming terror. Shadows slid across the windows like whispers slipping into her thoughts. Was it just the storm? Or were they coming for her? The unknown raged with her as the storm faded, but her heart thundered louder. Could she save her children before darkness consumed them all? The shadows thickened, the walls seemed to breathe, and the very air felt charged with fear. Sarah's heart hammered in her chest as she gripped the flashlight, a frail barrier against an onslaught of terror. She edged toward the window, peeking through the curtains to catch a glimpse of her surroundings. The storm had driven the neighborhood into an eerie silence, broken only by the sporadic patter of rain against the glass and the faint creaking of her own house. Her eyes darted to the reclusive couple's home. A dim light flickered through their window, casting mottled shapes that danced across the jagged darkness. The sight sent a chill racing down her spine. It was impossible to see anyone inside, but paranoia twisted the ordinary into something sinister. Suddenly, an alarming knock echoed against her front door, startling her. It felt oddly misplaced against the backdrop of the storm. She flicked the flashlight beam across the room, hesitating momentarily, before slowly approaching the door. Each step seemed to echo as if betraying her fear. What if it's them? A voice in her head warned. She had to know. Taking a deep breath, she reached for the doorknob with trembling fingers. The knocker struck again, more insistent this time. Heart racing, she swung the door open, revealing a figure cloaked in rain, silhouetted against the backdrop of swirling darkness. "Please, help," gasped a woman, her face pale, eyes wild, muddied hair clinging to her forehead. Sarah's South instinct screamed to close the door. Yet, the desperation radiating from the stranger was palpable, pulling at the threads of Sarah's humanity. Before she could process the implications, the woman stumbled inside, pushing past Sarah with a forcefulness that shocked her. "They're coming," she cried, her words tangled in frantic breaths. Sarah quickly shut the door behind her and locked it, bracing herself against the wood, feeling the weight of the unknown. "Who's coming?" she demanded, gripping the woman's shoulders, forcing her to focus. "From next door. I saw them," the woman shrieked, her eyes wide with panic. "They do terrible things. You have to believe me." Max stirred in his sleep, the sound of the woman's voice cutting through the tension of the moment. Sarah watched as the woman's gaze darted towards the darkened windows, the fright in her eyes amplifying with every passing second. It was as if she could sense a danger creeping closer, even if it was unseen. Sarah was losing her grip. "What do you mean? What have you seen? I don't have time. They know I'm here." The woman squeezed her eyes shut, shaking her head with fervor. "They can't know you two, none of you. You have to protect your children." The fear in her voice was contagious. Impulsively, Sarah glanced back towards Max's room. What if the woman was right? What if they had been watched all along? The tension thickened. The woman suddenly froze, her eyes widening with terror. "They're here," she whispered as if the mere utterance would summon the nightmare. "Who?" Sarah's voice rose, her heart racing as she pulled the woman closer to her. Without warning, the loud crash of shattering glass pierced the silence. Sarah felt the world tilt beneath her feet. She gripped the woman tighter, her flashlight beam quivering with fear as they both spun in the direction of the breaking glass. A figure emerged from the darkened corner of the room where the window had been. "We're too late," it said slowly, its voice low, dripping with malice. As dread settled like a lead weight in her chest, Sarah demanded, "What do you want?" The figure smiled, revealing a set of disturbingly eager eyes. "It's not what I want, but what you'll give up in order to survive." And just as that chilling prospect echoed like a death knell in her mind, Sarah's world spiraled into a darkness so profound, she couldn't tell where her nightmares ended and reality began. The ominous suffocation of dread pressed against her, urging her to find the monstrous connection buried deep within the horror that skulked around her suburban life. Could she truly escape the terror lurking next door? Or had she already begun to lose everything? A hand shot out from the figure's shadow, reaching towards Sarah with a claw-like intensity. She recoiled, adrenaline rushing through her veins, drowning out the rational thoughts that screamed at her to fight or flee. But where was there to go? The house felt smaller now, shifting and narrowing around her, almost as if it were trapping them inside. "Sarah, we have to move." The stranger's voice broke through the fog of fear. The urgency struck Sarah hard, and she heard herself whisper, "Max, your son, they want him." The woman whimpered, her gaze darting to the doorway, her breath hitching with terror. "No!" Sarah yelled, spinning on her heels and racing toward Max's room. The thought of anything, anyone, reaching him twisted her stomach into knots. She pushed the door open, heart pounding in her ears, but the empty crib mockingly greeted her instead. Panic clawed at her throat. "Max!" she called, voice loud and terrified, echoing through the silence. "I told you they're hunting." The woman insisted, rushing to Sarah's side, her grip steadying Sarah's scattered thoughts. "We don't have time. They entered the house through the window, there's no telling where they'll go next." No one entered her house without her knowing. That was a rule Sarah lived by. But a cold chill crept down her back as she remembered the broken shards of glass, the point of entry waiting behind her. "Listen to me," The woman's voice snapped Sarah back to reality. Find him. Make sure he is safe. We have to get to the basement. Basement? Sarah's eyes widened. Are you insane? That's south the first place they'll look. No. The woman's desperation flooded back, threatening to drown Sarah's resolve. Is south the only place they want to think you will go? Please, Sarah, trust me. The words burrowed into her mind, turning familiar shapes into possibilities. If the storm had done anything, it had torn fear into undeniable truth. She grabbed the flashlight tightly, its beam quivering as her heart danced on the edge of dread. Leaving Max felt wrong, primal fear gnawing at her. I have to check on him first. No, we don't have time. If they come for you here, he is lost. Her voice was frantic, and under the weight of her urgency, Sarah felt reason slipping away. I can't. The air grew thick with impending doom. No more indecision. Shoving her emotions aside, Sarah turned, praying for safety, and sprinted toward the basement door. The creaking stairs groaned under their weight, and soon they were enveloped in darkness. The basement loomed like a maw swallowing them whole. Strange, suffocating silence surrounded them. They descended, feeling the temperature drop, and with each step, Sarah's mind filled with thoughts of what could be lurking in the shadows down below. Lock the door behind us, the woman urged, her voice steadier now, almost tired. Why? They'll find us in the house, but they can't come in if we lock them out. They don't like the dark. Her eyes flickered, almost like she was caught between reality and fading sanity. Sarah's gaze traveled to the space behind her as she hesitated, glancing up at the door leading back to the house. She took a deep breath and locked it. But the moment the click echoed in the gloom, an unsettling noise filled the basement, a soft, scuttling scratching. It was close. What is that? Sarah whispered, each word laced with ice-cold fear. The flashlight flickered, casting frantic shadows that danced across the walls. They can't find us here, the woman insisted. But even her voice carried uncertainty, an echo of her own slowly disintegrating hope. Suddenly, the scratching intensified, drawing closer. An unbearable dread twisted like a knife in Sarah's gut. Something was down there with them. But what? Stay close, the woman said, as if trying to assert control, but already it felt like the darkness was advancing. Then came a distinct, vile whisper that cut through the tension. You think you're safe now? The hunt has only just begun. Sarah's breath hitched, terror consuming her as reality dissolved around them. But the worst was yet to come. The scratching continued, a relentless scuttle that seemed to echo off the cold concrete walls. Darkness closed in, pulling away any remnants of hope as fear dripped into every crevice of the basement. Sarah's eyes darted around, searching for any sign of light, any glimpse of safety. Keep the flashlight steady, the woman whispered, her voice tremoring as they pressed further into the darkness. I can't see, but I can feel them. Feel what? Sarah gasped, her mind racing. She wished desperately for a sense of control, yet the air felt like a shroud, heavy and suffocating. Entities. Shadows that hunt, they feed on fear, the woman answered, her tone growing distant. We must hold onto each other. They'll try to isolate us. I can't believe this is happening, Sarah mumbled, almost to herself. The basement felt like a tomb, and she shivered just thinking about what laid beneath the surface. A low growl rumbled from the shadows, sending ripples of ice down Sarah's spine. What was that? She shrieked, the beaming flashlight trembling in her grip, illuminating nothing but the vast, empty spaces around them. They're testing us, the woman muttered, fear lacing her tone. Just stay quiet and keep moving. We need to find a place. Suddenly, something brushed against Sarah's leg, cold and clammy. She screamed, tearing her flashlight from the woman's grasp. The beam flickered wildly, casting shapes that twisted grotesquely on the walls, blurring the distinction between reality and nightmare. Don't let the light go out, the woman yelled, lunging to retrieve the flashlight. But as soon as Sarah's gaze met her frantic eyes, a whisper colder than the basement air hissed around them. No escape, no escape. The woman's face paled, her features illuminated in stark terror. We need to find Max. He is still out there. Sarah's voice cracked, desperate and raw. The growl grew louder, an inescapable sound that reverberated through the walls, vibrating in her bones. Max! Sarah cried, adrenaline surging as she broke free from the woman's grasp, fueled by a mother's instinct. I can't leave him. Are you insane? The woman shrieked, panic igniting her tone. You'll lead them straight to him. Stay. We have to, but Sarah was already running, the flashlight beam slicing through the darkness. Each step echoed like a heartbeat. She could feel the darkness pulsating behind her, fingers of shadow reaching out, hungry for her descent into despair. As she turned the corner, the beam of light caught glimpses of something, the outline of figures, flickering shadows clawing at the edges of her sanity. Max! She shouted again, the name ringing empty against the hollow walls. Then it hit her like a lightning bolt. The crawling, scratching sound had multiplied. It was no longer singular. It surrounded her, echoing chaotically from all directions. Sarah's breath came in sharp, quick gasps. The woman's warning pulsed in her mind. They don't like the dark. The walls felt like they were closing in. But she could not stop. Just as she glimpsed the door at the far end of the basement, she heard an anguished howl, a voice that chilled her blood more than the darkness ever could. Sarah, get back. They've already taken him. Heart racing, she froze. The shadows shifted, congealing like smoke into something more tangible, more malicious. Their whispers twisted around her, laughter echoing through the abyss. You cannot save him, you'll be next. Fear clawed at her throat, tightening like a noose. She was caught. The hunt was indeed just beginning. The basement door creaked ominously, her only way out seemingly within grasp. But what awaited her on the other side? Would her most harrowing fears fester in reality? Or was there something darker yet lurking? As Sarah stood paralyzed, a chilling realization struck. To survive, she might have to embrace the darkness, to trust the malevolent whispers that promised safety. And in that terrifying moment, the cellar reverberated with the chilling anticipation of what was to come. The growling intensified, vibrating through the air like an unholy chant. Each shudder tightened around Sarah's chest, as if the shadows themselves were closing ranks, eager to swallow her whole in the suffocating black. Sarah. A voice shattered through the cacophony, pulling her from the abyss of her fears. It was the woman, movement stealing back into her limbs. We have to move. We can't let them corner us. But did she mean that? The shadowy forms transformed like fluid in her mind, twisting into grotesque visages of long-lost friends, their voices weaving sweet lies of comfort. What do I do? She gasped, terror tightening her throat. Be brave. Follow the light. The woman's frantic energy was infectious. Together, they stepped towards the door, a fragile steel handle glimmering in Sarah's flickering beam. If she touched it, could she escape? As if sensing her hesitation, the shadows curled closer, morphing into a chilling breeze, almost like a whisper. Stay, just stay. No. Sarah clutched her flashlight tighter, shaking her head in defiance. She lunged at the door, grasping the handle, willing it to be her salvation. Yet, the moment she turned it, a guttural growl echoed loudly, a dark heartbeat against the wall. Tension dripped like sweat from her brow, ricocheting against her wish for security. What lay outside, freedom or fate? The door creaked open, but she didn't step through. The dark was not about to let her leave. The suffocating dread bloomed, filling her lungs. She flung the door wide, scattering shards of odious darkness like fireflies. The sudden burst of light revealed bare steel stairs leading up into a muted glow. Hope flickered within her like a rebellious flame. Quick! Shouted the woman, pulling at Sarah's sleeve. We need to go. And together, they shoved through the door, the basement's breath chasing after them. The stairs felt like they would crumble beneath them, each step vibrating with the angry energy of what they had left behind. They could still hear the cries, echoing in their minds, warning them of what was to come. Cold sweat dripped down Sarah's back, seeping into the fabric of her clothes. The air thickened again, suffocating, filled with dread swirling around them. Max, hold on, I'm coming, she cried, but her words felt like stones thrown into still water, fading endlessly into nothingness. The darkness pulsated with malicious laughter in reply. At the top of the stairs, Sarah could see light spilling out from a cracked doorframe. She reached out to push it open. The door resisted, as if wary of the light, almost trying to protect the space filled with oppressive horror behind it. "Are you sure about this?" the woman hissed, her eyes wide, scanning the darkness behind them. The echoing growl was still present, lurking just out of sight, ready to pounce. "Max!" Sarah shouted again, the desperation igniting a raw energy within her. I can't turn back now." The door swung open with one forceful push, a rush of stark white light washing over them. But as they stepped into the room, footfalls light and hurried, Sarah's heart sank. Instead of safety, they emerged into an empty hallway, bare, neglected, an unsettling silence suffocating the air. "No," she breathed, glancing back over her shoulder. Shadows twisted ominously at the edge of the doorway behind them, shimmering in the hot light. The woman grabbed Sarah's arm. "We have to find him. Stay close." And as they moved further into the expanse, Sarah felt dread creep back in, wrapping around her heart with icy fingers. "What's happening?" she whispered. "Where is everyone?" The woman's gaze darted around, her own fear mounting as shadows grew denser. "It's playing with us," she muttered. "We can't trust what we see." The hallway elongated like a never-ending nightmare, and the distant sounds of scratching and growls began to swell again. But this time, a new sound twisted among them, a soft, echoing sob. "Max!" Sarah called, her voice trembling. She grasped her flashlight tighter, its beam illuminating the way forward, revealing walls splattered with something dark and thick. It was like blood. Her pulse quickened, panic building. "Where are you?" And her heart lurched as the anguished sobbing grew louder, echoing through the corridor. This wasn't just fear. They were hunting for something or someone. But as they pressed forward, an undeniable truth settled like lead in her stomach. "Are we too late?" she whispered, dread coiling deeper. The light wavered, flickering against the dark as ominous whispers reached for them. Not yet, not yet. Something was coming, and whatever it was, it would snatch away any hope they had left. What awaited them in the depths of the hall, far beyond the flickering light? Would they find Max, or become the final victims in a game not of their choosing? The sobbing grew louder, an unsettling symphony blending with the ominous growls that echoed around them. Each step felt like an intrusion into a horror that was only beginning to unfurl. Sarah's flashlight flickered, the beam wobbling as if it could sense the tension in the air, the thin veil of hope ripping apart at the seams. "Stay close," the woman urged, her voice taut with urgency. But Sarah couldn't shake the feeling, a gnawing sensation that something shadowy was inching closer, crawling from the dark recesses of the hallway. With every step, dread seeped deeper into her bones. What if they were being lured deeper into the nightmare? "Max!" she cried, her voice tinged with panic, but silence swallowed it, as if mocking her desperation. The walls around them loomed menacingly, cloaked in darkness yet alive, pulsating as though they breathed beneath the weight of unseen eyes. As they moved further into the hallway, the crying intensified, a heart-wrenching chorus laced with despair. Sarah felt tears prick at her eyes, the sound igniting a sense of urgency that clawed at her insides. What if it's too late? She thought, the dread festering in her chest like a malignant growth. Suddenly, a door swung open with a loud bang farther down the hallway, slamming against the wall, revealing an interior dimly lit with flickering neon lights. The source of the sob was now clearer, and without thinking, she bolted toward it, against the woman's hesitant grasp. "Sarah, wait!" But she didn't slow down. Fear propelled her forward. As she rounded the corner, the sight before her froze her blood. The room was a grotesque tableau, walls adorned with photographs, eerie images of people twisted in fear, mirroring the cries that pierced the air. In the center stood a figure, hunched and shadowy, cradling a small form in its arms. The sobbing stopped abruptly, replaced with a heavy silence that thickened the air. "Max?" Sarah felt her heart pound in her throat. "Is that you?" The figure slowly turned, revealing hollow, pitch-black eyes that absorbed the light around them. A grotesque smile spread across its face, wide and unnatural, a mockery of joy that sent a shiver down her spine. "Sarah," it rasped, its voice unfurling like smoke. "You shouldn't have come, it's so much fun here." The woman grasped Sarah's arm, pulling her back as the realization hit this wasn't her brother. Max was gone, replaced by something that wore his skin. The shadows twisted closer. They were the very manifestation of all the fears she'd harbored, ready to envelop her. "Run!" the woman screamed, but Sarah couldn't move. "Why?" she whimpered, horrified as she watched what remained of her brother's essence flickering within that hollow shell. "Because it wants you too." The shadows danced around them, cackling with glee as they surged towards Sarah. The walls began to close in, the surface buckling like wet clay. Her heart raced. There was no escape. Not now, not ever. Did I, in a moment of sheer instinct, Sarah turned to flee, the echo of sickening laughter chasing after her, each step sinking her deeper into despair. The hallway twisted impossibly, turning into a labyrinth of madness and shadows. Every flicker of light revealed monstrous shapes lurking just beyond her vision, as if the very darkness itself held its breath, waiting for the right moment to strike. "Where do we go?" the woman shouted, panic spilling into her voice. Shadows crept closer, gnashing with anticipation. But all Sarah could focus on was the relentless sobbing behind her, morphing into a cruel chorus. "You're too late," it seemed to say. Now they were its prey, running in vain as the darkness prepared to feast. Could they escape the entwined fates that awaited them? Or would they become another echo in the haunted memories of the manor? As they pressed deeper into the corridor, another door appeared ahead, a glimmer of hope or an even darker fate. What lay beyond that door? Would they find a way to rescue Max, or was it simply the doorway to their own doom? The door loomed before them, its weathered surface marked with carvings that seemed to writhe under the flickering neon lights. As Sarah hesitated, the murmurs of fear crawled up her spine. She needed to decide: either burst through into the unknown or allow the shadows to swallow her. "Let us go now," the woman shouted, shoving Sarah forward. The urgency in her voice snapped Sarah from her paralysis. She grasped the cold handle, adrenaline coursing through her veins before yanking the door open. A chill enveloped them, wrapping around their bodies like icy fingers. The room beyond was a dimly lit chamber, more deranged than the last. Sparsely furnished, it contained only a rickety table and several rusted tools that glinted ominously in the flickering light. In the furthest corner, an old mirror stood, its glass grimy with decades of neglect. "Sarah, we have to find a way out," the woman urged, scanning the space with frantic eyes. But Sarah's attention was snagged by the mirror. It shimmered oddly, almost as if it were breathing, the glass rippling like disturbed water. Somewhere within its depths, shadows moved, dark figures shifting, merging and separating, as if trapped within. "What is that?" she whispered, drawn in. "Stay away from it," the woman yelled, urgency morphing into fear. But Sarah was already stepping closer, enticed by the silhouettes that twisted and turned, desperate to understand what lay trapped inside. As she leaned in, the figures became clearer faces, twisted in agony. She gasped. There was Max. His expression was one of raw terror, frozen in time, trapped behind the translucent barrier of the mirror. "Help me," he mouthed. "No." The woman pulled Sarah back, her grip tightening as dread washed over her. "We can't look too long, it will take you." The warning shivered through Sarah, but she couldn't pull her gaze away. "Max!" she shouted, heart pounding against her ribs, desperate to reach him. With every second spent staring into the mirror, the shadows began to seep out, crackling and pulsating like a living thing. "Stop! We need to leave." The woman's voice trembled with rising panic, but the spark of hope ignited by Max's presence overwhelmed Sarah. Could she really save him? Suddenly, the mirror shattered with a low, haunting wail, splintering glass spraying across the room. A darkness far more profound than they had encountered before lunged forward, a mass of writhing shadows bursting out in an unholy rush. "Run!" the woman screamed, dragging Sarah away just as the shadows clawed at their heels. They sprinted back into the hallway, but the space warped around them a fever dream of spinning doors and echoing screams. With no clear path ahead, Sarah threw herself into another room, clutching the woman's arm. "What are we going to do?" Panic seeped into her voice, drowning her. I don't know." The echo of laughter rang in their ears, chilling and grotesque, a taunt that pushed deeper into their minds. Their breaths quickened as the atmosphere thickened, shadows curling around them like vines, threatening to crush the hope that flickered weakly. "Over here." Sarah pointed to another door at the end of the corridor. But as they approached, the door quaked, flashing images of their worst fears: darkness, loneliness, betrayal. "Don't look," the woman shouted, but the images were seared into Sarah's mind. Each door they faced felt like a trap, with shadows licking at her ankles, as if the house itself conspired to keep them inside. "I can't go on like this," the woman gasped, her strength wavering. The shadows swirled closer, hungry for despair, and Sarah realized the lurking presence of something far worse than mere spirits. Could they break free, or had despair solidified into a fate they couldn't escape? Just then, a soft whisper from the shadows slithered through the air, promising, "You will be one of us." Sarah's heart dropped. Was there even a way to save Max, or had they just run into their own demise? The door ahead began to tremble violently, a grotesque promise of what lay within a chamber that whispered secrets from a past never meant to resurface. What awaited them on the other side? Would they survive the horrors that hunted them? Or would this new door reveal the true nightmare lurking in the bowels of the manor? The door burst open, and the air thickened with a rancid smell. A scream rattled in Sarah's throat, but she forced it down. The room was larger, filled with old wooden crates piled high, their surfaces covered in a thick layer of dust. Cobwebs stretched across the corners like skeletal fingers, and the shadows behind the boxes shifted, drawing her gaze. "Stay close," the woman snapped, panic flaring in her eyes. But Sarah was already stepping deeper into the room, the darkness all around her swelling like a living organism. "There has to be a way out of this," she whispered, hoping that this new space held answers instead of more nightmares. Her instincts screamed to flee, yet the flickering lights above cast unsettling shapes that danced on the walls, beckoning her forward. "Sarah." The woman pulled her back, drawing her attention. "We can't split up. We have to find the exit together." But before Sarah could respond, the air changed, rattling with a low hum that filled the room. The old crates shifted, as if something was moving within them. With a sudden gust, one of the crates tipped over, spilling its contents onto the floor, a pile of tattered dolls, their ceramic faces cracked and unsettling. Their hollow eyes seemed to stare right through Sarah, sending chills racing across her skin. "No, not this too." The woman staggered back, the fear etched into her features, tightening like a noose. "We have to go back. Don't you hear that?" Sarah replied, her voice barely above a whisper, still entranced by the dolls. The hum intensified, wrapping around them with whispers of agony. "What if they can tell us something?" Before the woman could respond, one of the dolls slowly turned its head, as if moving of its own accord, the wooden joints creaking. "Help us," it whispered, its voice low and rasping. "Did you hear that?" Sarah breathed, stepping closer. "Stop, Sarah." The urgency in the woman's voice broke through the haze, but it was too late. In an instant, the other dolls moved, their heads snapping in her direction, eyes glinting with unholy knowledge. "You shouldn't have come here," they chimed in unison, their voices melding into a cacophony of despair. The temperature dropped, and the shadows deepened, coiling around the two women. The woman yanked Sarah back, but Sarah felt an overwhelming force pulling her towards the dolls, an invisible tether that tied her to their fate. "We need to go." The woman grasped Sarah's wrist, but Sarah felt only dread and a strange sense of belonging as the shadows lunged forward. They fell back, crashing against a shelf that splintered and splattered the floor with old contents. Bits of fabric and glass shards scattered like shattered memories. The doll's laughter echoed like skeletal hands scraping against the very fabric of her sanity. Sarah's heart raced. "We can't stay here. We need to move." Then help me. The woman's panic rose sharply, and they scrambled together toward the back of the room, glancing over their shoulders at the advancing shadow figures merging into the flurry of ghosts that had escaped from the mirror. Suddenly, the wall behind them cracked open, revealing a dark passage. "This way," Sarah shouted, her instincts screaming for survival as they plunged into the cavernous darkness. The sounds of manic laughter chased after them, mocking their flight, while shadows clawed at the air behind them. The passage constricted, squeezing tight around them, a claustrophobic grip that threatened to suffocate. But hope flickered like the dying lights above, a way out somewhere ahead. They stumbled deeper into the unknown, hearts pounding in tandem, but a palpable sense of dread echoed louder than their breaths. What awaited them in the depths of the manor? Would they face the truth hiding in the dark? Or had they just sealed their fates even further? The shadows whispered promises of despair as the passage twisted further away from the light. "Sarah, look out!" the woman yelled, pointing at a swirling mass converging onto them. The darkness filled the space, hungry and relentless, and as they braced for the worst, a single word clawed its way through the cacophony found. Was there truly no escape from this nightmare? Or would they unravel the true horror of the manor before it consumed them whole? The passageway swallowed them whole, twisting and coiling like a serpent. A dark mist slithered along the walls, obscuring their vision, making it hard to tell where the ground ended and the shadows began. Their breaths quickened, echoing in the oppressive silence. Sarah's pulse was a drumbeat in her ears, drowning out the laughter that still echoed behind them. "Keep moving," the woman urged, urgency threading her voice with panic. But how far could they run? Each step felt heavier, as if the shadows were ensnaring her ankles, begging her to turn around. Every instinct screamed to stop, to face the ghastly embrace behind them. But Sarah pressed on, her mind racing. "We can't die here," she murmured, the words slipping out with desperate hope. They had to find a way out, and soon. A sudden gust of wind whipped through the corridor, blowing strands of hair across Sarah's face. She squinted into the darkness, catching faint outlines flickering at the edges of her vision. "Did you see that?" she whispered, her voice cracking. "Just keep going," the woman insisted, a tremor lacing her words. As if in response to their fear, the shadows seemed to pulse, throbbing rhythmically, syncing with their frantic hearts. The walls closed in on them, and the air grew thick, almost tangible. Sarah felt her stomach clench tight. Just ahead, they stumbled upon a door, a warped silhouette against the shadows. Hope ignited in Sarah's chest. With shaking hands, she pushed it open. The hinges screeched like a banshee, but there was no turning back. They burst into another room. It was larger than the last, dimly lit by a flickering chandelier that dangled precariously from the ceiling. Cobwebs draped like veils, hanging heavy in the corners. A large, ornate mirror took up the wall opposite them, its glass cloudy, but the reflections that shimmered within looked all too alive. "Look at the mirror," Sarah gasped, stepping forward. Figures danced in its depths, their faces twisted with fear, mirroring the horror that gripped them. "They're trapped," the woman yelled. "We have to help them." "Help them?" Sarah shook her head, heart racing. "What if they're like the dolls? What if we get pulled in too?" But the plea in their expressions drew her closer. "We can't leave them," she murmured, almost to herself. Without waiting for her companion, Sarah touched the glass, her fingers brushing against the cold surface. The moment she did, a jolt coursed through her, a rush of images flooding her mind, their terror, their cries for help, echoes of her own nightmare. "Sarah, no!" The woman lunged, but it was too late. A force yanked Sarah toward the mirror, pulling her into its depths. A scream caught in her throat as she felt herself fragmenting, trapped between her reality and the restless souls within, and the next breath, she toppled into darkness, colliding with a sharp pain that drew a whimper from her lips. She landed hard, surrounded by the figures she had seen trapped. Their faces turned toward her, a swarm of desperate eyes filled with yearning and despair. "Join us," they hissed in unison, and the room spun with their desire. Seizing her chance for escape, Sarah pushed herself up. She needed to break free whatever it took. Her gaze searched for the exit, the door where the woman still stood, frozen in fear. "Help me!" she screamed, but the words echoed hollow, swallowed by the sinister energy of the mirror. Suddenly, she caught sight of the woman, her expression shifting from horror to determination. She moved closer, arm outstretched, desperately reaching for Sarah. "Grab my hand." But before her fingers could connect, the mirror rippled, blurring the faces of the trapped souls. A deafening roar filled the air as the shadows surged forward. "No!" Sarah gasped. The shadows were why they were here. The true horror of the manor was not confined to mere dolls and whispers. They were trapped just as the others had been. As the mirror began to close once more, Sarah's heart raced. Would she break free, or would she become another prisoner of the manor? The woman's haunting scream pierced the air as shadows enveloped them. What truth lay buried in the depths of the mirror? Would they uncover salvation, or be consumed forever? As shadows twisted and writhed around Sarah, she felt each pulse of darkness follow her every frantic heartbeat, clutching at her raw nerves. The weight of fear dragged her down, but deep within her, a flicker of resolve ignited. "I refuse to be another victim," she snarled through gritted teeth. With one final push, she ran toward the figure of the woman, her friend, her vital lifeline. "Grab my hand," she called, stretching her arm as far as she could. The swirling darkness clawed at her heels, but in that moment, she felt more powerful than the shadows that sought to drag her under. The woman reached out, fingers brushing against Sarah's. Their hands united, and with a jolt, strength surged through them, both an alliance forged in the face of terror. Together, the woman cried as both their hearts beat in unison, synchronized in purpose. With one mighty tug, Sarah yanked the woman closer, and the mirror rippled violently at their bond, flickering like a heartbeat. The trapped souls surged toward them, their faces reflecting anguish, desperation, but also hope. "You can break free," they whispered, voices rising in a cacophony, blending into something unstoppable. "Believe in the light," Sarah shouted, a spine of courage solidifying within her. She seized the edge of the mirror, ready to wrench it apart, to break the spell that held it together. An illusion danced upon the fears that bound them all. The shadows howled in protest as the energy of their hope collided against the suffocating darkness. Together, the two women pulled back, their bodies vibrating with power that surged through the air. "You have no hold on us," Sarah shouted, the fear in her chest subsiding as determination surged through her. With a final, desperate scream, they pushed against the mirror, fractures spiderwebbing across its surface like a shattering dream. The darkness spun wildly, shadows flailing, struggling to maintain control. As the glass shattered, light exploded around them, thick and bright, cutting through the malevolent shadows. The mirror dissolved into blinding shards that scattered everywhere, each one releasing a tortured soul, freeing them from the binding grips. "Max," Sarah called, each echo drowning out the lingering darkness. Were those whispers of fear now turned to cries of freedom in the air? The chamber erupted in light, washing clean the twisted memories that clawed at her sanity. As shadows dissipated, new figures emerged: her brother, his small, frightened frame rushing forward. "Mom!" he cried, arms wide, innocence pouring from him like sunlight. Sarah swept him up, cradling him in a desperate embrace. Relief crashed over her, mingling with love, restoring fragments of her heart that the terror had tried to abrade. "I thought I lost you," she murmured, each heartbeat a promise. But in the flurry of triumph, Sarah grabbed the woman's hand again, pulling her close amongst the chaotic freedom reveling around them. "We need to get out." Emerging through the wreckage, they burst into the familiar hallway of their own home. The sun blazed outside, pastel colors warming the once dreary scenes. The torment of the manor felt like a distant memory, replaced by safety and warmth. They stumbled into the living room, the mundane comfort of their home wrapping around them like a protective cocoon. Max stood, eyes wide, whispering, "You found me." In the embrace of what was real, shadows lingered. Yet they stood victorious, united against a darkness that sought to cloud their lives with fear. As the sunlight streamed in, Sarah knew they shared something sacred, a bond forged in the very depths of terror that humankind rarely dared to traverse. The woman turned to Sarah, a gentle smile breaking the tension. "You kept him safe," she whispered with an abiding warmth. "And you saved me too." As they shared their farewell, a promise to uplift each other, reminded of their strength, they stepped outside into the blinding sun. And for the first time in what felt like an eternity, Sarah breathed deep the cool air, filling her lungs with hope. The shadows retreated, but they would remember. Darkness was always waiting just beyond the veil. Yet as long as they had each other, they could fight back. "Let us go home," Sarah said to Max, taking his small hand into hers. They walked together, back into the world, leaving behind the dark, haunted memories of the house next door. If only everyone could find their light in the dark. Now it's your turn. You need to subscribe immediately to our channel, so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will send chills down your spine. Smash that like button now to show your support. It feeds the algorithm and helps us bring you more content you love. And don't forget to flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this intense ending. What did you think? Instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Send them a scare they won't forget. This is the moment to show your support. So don't wait even one more second.